Sound is one of the most effective vehicles for not only helping people to slow down and become more centered, but also to connect to something deeper within themselves. Most of the time, that something deeper is the spiritual self, or you might call it the true self. For others, though, it's actually connecting to something that even transcends the self. So we're talking about a connection to something that they can only describe as the sacred. And frankly, the sound is at the very heart of facilitating that change and connection. All right. Hi, I'm Jonathan Ellerby. I'm the Spiritual Program Director for Canyon Ranch, and I want to talk to you a little bit about one of the services that we have here that is extremely popular. It's not only popular with the guests, but it's also one of my favorite services to do. It's called Shamanic Journey. Now, Shamanic Journey, or Shamanic Journey work, is based on principles we find in healing traditions around the world and throughout time. And at its heart is sound technology. What we use is crystal bowls. So for example, we use the tones from these beautiful crystal bowls, and we use the drum. And we also use this state-of-the-art neuroacoustic sound bed. So what we're really doing is we're incorporating different sound tools throughout time, from ancient sound elements like the drum to the most modern things. And all of these are really put together in a way that helps people to not only relax, but also to open their minds and access their intuition. So let me tell you a little more about this bed. This is a bed that was developed for Canyon Ranch by the Center for Neuroacoustic Research and Dr. Jeffrey Thompson. This is a model that essentially mirrors a similar model that's being used at the Mayo Clinic in Scottsdale. So clearly, we're using this because it works, and we're using this because it's been tested over time. What makes this sound bed unique is it's got two padded chambers. So the patient or the client or the guest, the person experiencing it, lays on the bed, head up here, feet down here, and the chambers are actually separated right and left. So what you have inside, beneath these cushions, is actually a divide, and it's sound insulated so that the right sounds do not bleed into the left sounds do not bleed into the right. And what that allows us to use is special sound healing technology. For example, what you find in the work of the Evensons and Soundings of the Planet, as well as the hemisync technology that try to capitalize on the use of right and left signals, triggering specific brain states and even synchronizing hemispheres of the brain. So, by laying on this, what is happening is the person is not only experiencing the stereo right and left in the speakers, but we have transducers, speakers actually in the bed itself, and these are giving the person a kinesthetic or sensory experience of the sound itself. They're literally hearing the sound through their body. And one thing that's been fascinating for me to learn about is the fact that the body actually is a fantastic conduit of sound, that bones are even incredible conduits of sound. So what we find then is when they lay on this bed, they have a unique encounter not only of the stereo technology, but also of literally the vibration and the frequency of the bed itself. The results are extraordinary. And frankly, we work with people who have an interest in simply exploring their spiritual life. We work with people who are looking to slow down. We work with people who are looking for a deeper insight. And we also work with people who are dealing with a physical challenge or emotional challenge. There's really nothing that the human spirit or consciousness cannot address when facilitated or when supported. And I really do believe that sound is at the heart of what helps us to create that loving and safe space. So part of what's exciting about my work is that I get to use healing tools and technologies that really exist at the bridge between the ancient and the modern. So two of the other tools that we use are crystal bowls and the drum. Now the drum, we know anthropologically, is perhaps the oldest sound healing tool that we have, perhaps with the exception of the human voice. And what we find is that different rhythms facilitate not only different moods, but even different brain states. There was some great research done by Dr. Barry Bittman, and he looked at different rhythms and which ones had the most powerful effect or the most immediate effect on inducing certain states of consciousness or the relaxation response. And what they found were that the very rhythms that are central to indigenous traditions and have been for thousands of years are some of the most healing rhythms that we can use today. But more than just the drum, we also have the crystal bowls. The bowls we use are originally inspired by the Tibetan meditation bowls, which are actually made of poured metals. Now, in a traditional Tibetan bowl, usually there are a variety of metals blended in the process, and so they emit a range of tones when they're played. These bowls, however, are designed to create pure notes or pure tones. So we have an F and we have a C. And what we find through this modern innovation is that we are able to build upon and access the ancient teachings about sound frequencies and certain notes and tones and their ability to influence change and healing in the body. So these are literally tuned to different chakra centers, different energy centers. As an example, the F is associated in some traditions with the frequency of the heart. The root here is associated with the key or the note C. And then this one we have for the throat. Now we choose these three tones and the corresponding chakras based on our intention to create a healing response in people. And you can imagine the root here is about helping people work through fear and security issues. The heart is about opening to a sense of compassion for the self and the world. And for most of us, the ability to communicate our needs and express ourselves and our soul's purpose and mission is one of the biggest stumbling blocks to our health. So we have all these tools that we can use throughout the process, and we almost create a kind of orchestra of these sound healing tools based on our intuition. So in a sense, there is this kind of symphony that unfolds between the recorded music, the volumes that we're playing, the selections that we're choosing, the tones of the bowls, when we're playing them, how loud and how long, and then the rhythms of the drum. As you can imagine, the person in the midst of the experience is swept up in something that really takes them out of their mind and into their heart and their spirit. So when it comes to selecting our music, generally we're not using music you'd hear on the radio. Generally, we're not playing music that people would immediately recognize. Now, they might recognize the artists, and we are proud to say that we use people like Dean and Dudley Evenson, and we use people like Chuck Wilde and Liquid Mind. I mean, there are certain familiar names in the field that we will use. However, what's unique about those pieces typically is that while the artist and the style may be familiar, we're usually picking pieces where the melody may not be familiar, or in fact there may be no central melody. It may be just a progression of tones, it may be a simple rhythm with a wandering kind of instrumentation on top of it. And so we are choosing our music very specifically. In some cases, it's true, we do pick things that have a certain repetitive quality, but that would usually be in rhythm and not in melody. What we don't want is to play the kind of music where people are humming along or thinking about a tune, although we do want to play music that's going to evoke a mood or create a certain kind of physical or even emotional response. It's a joy for me to work with sound, not only as a healer, but in my own personal life, because no matter where I've traveled to learn about different spiritual traditions, sound, song, drumming, choirs, toning, chanting, it's everywhere I go. And as I pursued my academic study of comparative religion, even working towards my Ph.D., regardless of who or what I was studying, sound and music were never far behind. And even when I did research for my book, Return to the Sacred, which is really looking at the core spiritual practices that show up in cultures around the world and throughout time, sound actually shows up as one of the universal pathways to connecting with the self and the spirit. So I can't say enough about sound. It's a part of every moment of my life, and ever since I started to look at sound more spiritually, I find it a ever-present gateway to connect with the spirit. I pay attention to the sounds of birds. I pay attention to the rhythm of trains. I've come to see that sound is not just a backdrop for life, but sound in some ways is the very thread that weaves life together. I'm honored to be able to talk about the role of sound in healing and spirituality because it's been central to my life, and I see what a difference it makes in other people's lives every single day.